We are left, according to my Swiss watch, with 8 minutes general discussion. I don't want just to hold you up for these 7 minutes. However, and the number of speakers have already left. Nevertheless, I would like to ask the audience whether there are some more burning questions, general questions. Does anybody have a question which those who are still here, or even myself or Reinhard Zellner, may be able to answer? Any questions which were coming up during this long session? No questions? One question.
My question is a bit general with respect to your NFP 64. You have run this now 3 years. Were there any real surprises, or what more or less what you did expect?
Surprises in the way that, not as far as data are concerned, but one group, the group from Geneva with Olivier Martin, managed to create an instrument which estimates in the environment the oxidative stress in cells underwater. So that's an environmental project, and that got published in Nature. So I think that's quite a success. There is the group around Barbara Rothen at the Adolf Merkel Institute at the University of Fribourg, which got awards for their work they did, and they got also a number of additional funding. So due to the results they were presenting, they were publishing due to, or in the NRP 64 program. That's two things which come up in my mind immediately. I can tell you that a number of other projects are running very well, but I couldn't at this moment say this is something really outstanding which came out. However, I'm sure there will be some other results coming out which are surprising, because in these projects they are working very well, very productively, and also one of the things I did not expect, or I just didn't think of it, is the networking between the projects has become better and better with the years. And we have a year and a half ahead of us or they have a year and a half ahead of them working on their projects. By the end of 2015, that program will be closed. Until then, I guess there is a number of things coming out. So they will then write or work on their final reports, and we will find out what happened. That's very shortly said.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I answer?
Yeah, sure. Reinhard Zellner.
You didn't ask me, but since I was working on this German program for 6 years, and if I just take up this question. Initially, when we started, I used to pose one very important question, what I thought was an important question, namely, is nanoscale size already a toxic property of material? Yes or no? And I made suggestions in order to find out whether this is the case or not. And it turns out that there are cases where it really is indication that its size isn't toxic property. But there are other cases as well, which you find where nanoscale is not toxic property itself. So it depends on the material, it depends on surface properties, it depends on morphology, on shape, whatever you have. And also, it depends on very much on the type of biology you're talking about. One cell type is not the same as the other one. They all deal with, as we have talked about, the uptake of cells, for instance. They all deal in a very different way with nanoparticles. So in resume, in my view nowadays, after having studied this for 6 years with my colleagues, this is a huge matrix between material and biology. And we've learned a lot about individual species and individual cells. But to draw general conclusions, the type of, similar to what I have said before, is nanoscale and the size, an important property for toxicity. I would say it's not easy to draw these simple conclusions from the whole system. The complexity is just still too large. Maybe we have to work much longer in order to make some sensible conclusions. But currently, I believe we have to look into the specificity of certain types of materials and certain type of cells in order to understand how they interact. And finally, what I've also learned is that an interaction of nanoparticle with a cell is one thing, but biology as a whole, a species, an organ, or a whole individuum is very different. So the activity or the reaction of a species towards nanoparticle uptake can be quite different from the one what you see in the cells. Individual cell experiments are something. They are good for screening, but quite often they don't tell you anything about individual toxicity. So that's a big difference as well. And I wonder how we can scale, bring these two things together, the cell type of experiment with the organistic type of experiments that we also do. A long way between the two. And finally, I still recognize a difficulty in language between chemists, material scientists, and biologists. That has not been resolved. If you ask the one, what type of experiment should I do as a biologist? Or you as a chemist, you ask a biologist, what are you suggesting? What kind of experiment I should do for you? There's still huge gaps between these kind of groups of researchers.
Thank you very much, Reinhard. With this, we have used up our session time. But before I officially close, I would like once again to thank all the speakers who have presented really interesting work. Thank you very much again. I would also like to thank my two colleagues, Louis Schlappach, who had to leave early because he didn't feel well, and Reinhard Zellner, who were very cooperative when we organized this session, and it was a great pleasure with their collaboration to organize this session. And last but not least, I would like to thank the room support, which was very efficient. Thank you very much. So a final thank you. All of you who attend tonight's dinner, I wish you a really nice and dinner with a lot of fun. It is an extremely wonderful venue, I promise you. And all the others, have a nice and a safe trip back to the hotel or to your home. Bye-bye.